All right, so James Schramko, you guys want to stay for this, promise you. It's 20 minutes, it's going to be great. So James was at Underground 4. So we talked about, here's the 3 ways that I think your life changes. Your life really changes by the books that you read, the material that you study, the people that you meet, and the experiences or events that you're a part of. And that's what Underground's all a part of. Shh, sorry guys, I shouldn't have even let you have the stretch break. Should have made you sit in your seats like good boys and girls. And so James came to Underground, didn't exactly know what the hell it was. He was working full-time as a manager at a car dealership and really decided that that's not what he wanted to do, and took what he learned here, the connections that he met, and went on to create now a 7-figure profit business. All from his sole goal is to surf every single day, if possible. And so James is going to be doing almost like it's like a bit of a case study of what happens, and that's what I asked him to do. So you're going to hear a lot about James. This is not James's normal routine. You don't hear a lot about James when he talks about himself. But I asked him to just share all the things he's doing because I think it's going to be very instructive. So let's welcome up James Schramko from Australia.
Thanks, Yannick.
All right.
Alrighty, I'm going to locate this clicker. So I'm going to share with you, I guess, some personal stuff, because Yannick asked me to explain what happens when you come to an underground. I made a picture for you. 8:33 a.m. Monday morning this week, I found myself at the local surf club bathroom taking care of business. As my pants were down, I was thinking, this could have been prevented. If I just put the toilet roll in the bathroom, my kid wouldn't have put the paper towel down there the night before. But as bad as my problems were, a lot of other businesses have terrible problems, a lot of problems that could be resolved. So hopefully some of the tips that I share here, you can implement into your business. Who's here for the first time? Hand up if you're here for the very first Underground. Okay, and who's back for a second one? We should have covered everyone there. Okay, so the deal was I went to Underground 4, and I have so much gratitude that I'm just going to show you, and it absolutely blows me away how many things that I'm doing now came from that event. Like most people, I got on the online business because it all looked very easy. But then I discovered that it's not quite as easy as they make out. And so one of the first tips I can offer you is that the second mouse gets the cheese. Okay, thank you. So really the point here is that someone out there has probably already done the testing for you. You just have to turn up at the right time and get the good information. This was me 6 years ago in the car dealership. And I was maxed out. I was definitely doing all the stuff that I was learning from the internet marketing tapes that I was listening to. I had Yannick Silver. I was doing product launch formulas in the car dealership, and they worked fantastically well, but it wasn't my business. And I felt kind of like that last row of a Tetris game where there's just nothing left. I was working after hours. I was probably doing around $5,000 per month with my online business, but it wasn't getting me where I needed to go. So I purchased John Reese's Traffic Secrets, which was on special, and we were down at the beach. I had my 1-week holiday in January, and my kids were out in the surf, and I was on the couch watching DVDs for my 1 week's annual leave, and I just felt like life is escaping me. This isn't living. And I rang up my friend who was house mining. I said, "You've got to book me a ticket to this underground event." Because I realized, I kept hearing Yannick talking about how much he invests in his own education, and I realized that I had to just do it. Even though I didn't have much annual leave, I had all my outgoings going towards mortgages and shares, and you've got to keep in mind, this is just before the US financial collapse. I had already been on a newsletter from Jonathan Mizell. It was his affiliate offer that I responded to, promoting the event. And I'd already met Mike Filsame at a Sydney event, so I realized that going to an event is powerful. And Mike actually invited me to dinner somehow, and he said, "You'll be making $100,000 a month." So I had this belief that this investment, and a substantial investment, to come from Australia, it's about $5,000. You've got to buy a ticket, an airfare, and then accommodation. So I hopped on the airplane and I went to Underground 4. I didn't know a single person, and I was jet lagged and I was starving, but I just sat down and took notes. I was in every single session. I took reams of notes. And then there was this guy, Eben Pagan, talking about some cool stuff, and he had this speed of implementation prize. He said, if you do something really fast, by the time the event finishes, you could win my CD collection, or DVDs. And I thought, that sounds really interesting. And then I saw Yannick up there on stage waving around $100, saying, do the best you can with $100 and you'll win a prize. So I thought, what could I do with $100 to have this speed of implementation? And other people had all these great ideas and they were doing all this cool stuff, and I wasn't sure what I would do. But I went back, took my stuff to the room, I went down to the local restaurant because I was starving by now. The waitress ignored me, and I was sitting at the bar and I had a drink, and I was waiting, and then I had another drink, and by about 11:30 at night, just close to midnight, they were like, "Sir, did you want another drink?" I'm like, I would die for some food. I'll eat the next thing that comes out of the kitchen. I'll pay you extra. And they said, "Oh, sorry." And then I had this thought. I knew what I was going to do with this $100 challenge. And I turned over the menu and I mapped out a plan. And as I was writing it out, I had tears welling in my eyes. I was actually overcome with a sense that this was like some destiny, that this had to happen. I can't explain it. It's never happened before in my life, and it's only ever happened maybe once since then. But I knew. I knew what to do. And I wanted to help children, and I wanted to help children with impediments. So I thought that I would build a website for deaf and blind children, and that I would drive traffic to their sponsorship page where people could donate. And I went back to my room, and at midnight I started, and I did the keyword research. I built a website, and it looked like this. I built this in my hotel room from midnight till 6 in the morning. So I had no sleep. And I was just overcome with the process. I made a video, which I put on the page. I loaded them up to YouTube. I started an AdWords campaign. I put an article on a directory. I started backlinking it. And by the next morning, I even documented the process and handed in a CD-ROM to the prize coordinator, who was Tim. And then I ended up winning the prize. Actually, I co-won it with another guy called John. And it was really cool. I got to go up on stage and collect my prize. And Yannick said that I'd won Maverick. And I'm like, what? One of those Eben Pagan DVDs. And I'm like, this is like the last thing that I need right now, is to have to come back to America in 6 weeks' time to a free event that's going to cost me $5,000. I had no annual leave left. I'd already maxed out the card on Underground, so it was kind of like great, but not that great at the time. But I did get a t-shirt from the event. I've still got the t-shirt, by the way. And every single night I would come home from work, I would have a shower, and I would put on my t-shirt, and I would get to work. I was like Superman. Had my Underground shirt. It was my anchor, my reminder that I could do this. So even though I knew that I couldn't go, my wife said, "You have to go." And I went to Las Vegas, and we were doing all sorts of things: aerial combat, vomit comet. I met Peter Diamandis, Tony Hawk, and this guy, Eamon, at the time was kind of a secretive guy, but he was allegedly doing up to $100,000 a day in sales. And he was sharing with me some resources. Now, I got a lot of good notes at the event already. Probably my most important notes were from Mike Hill's presentation, because I'd gone home and I started running CPV campaigns for the affiliate offers that I already had, and I was able to substantially increase my revenue. I got my course attendance back. And then after the Las Vegas event, on the way home, on the airplane back to San Francisco, I sat next to Tim Houston. And Tim's like a cruisy dude. He was a super affiliate. And he was saying, I don't get it. And I'm like, what don't you get, Tim? He goes, you make like 300 grand a year. I said, yeah. And he goes, how do you live with yourself? Like, he's doing 100 grand a month. And it just hit me. It hit me so hard. The reframe, the repositioning of that. I was in a job that some consider the pinnacle of a career. And then there was these little whispers of economic bad loans coming through from the US. And I'm in the luxury car segment. I'm a general manager of a Mercedes-Benz dealership paid by one person. So I pulled out my J. Abraham book. And I looked at the last chapter, which prescribes the deal where you go and find the person you want to do business with and you pitch to them. So I went back to some websites that I'd built, and I went to the two customers and I said, I'm going to go into business for myself. Would you like to come on board on a monthly subscription? And they both said yes. And I pitched them at $5,500 per month each. And I was right then and there able to quit my job. So I handed back my keys. I told my boss that I no longer require his services. Thank you very much. And I was in business for myself. So this was just weeks after attending the Maverick event. The next thing was Mexico. And I met all sorts of interesting people at Mexico. I met, in particular, Brad Fallon, but also Joe Polish. These two people became very important to me later on. Now remember that I only got to meet these people through the underground, the Maverick, and then so on. So I'm out independent on my own, and it wasn't always easy. The very first day that I went to my clients to start doing their new account, I got some long SMS, some hate SMS from someone I used to work with, who I'd actually had arrested for fraud. And he sent this anonymously. I didn't know it was him at the time. But I just sucked it back in and I went inside and did business. And then 3 weeks later, my solicitor customer called me and they said, we need to talk. I'm like, oh shit. So I put on shoes, I went into town and sat at the boardroom, and all these lawyers pile in and they're like, okay, is what we're doing illegal? I'm like, no. I said, okay, good. How can we spend more money with you? And these customers are still customers today. Right now, still have those two original customers on a recurring monthly. So if you haven't written down recurring monthly yet, you really want to make a note of that. That is like such a secret. All right, so at Mexico, I said to Yannick and the group, like, we get to ask a question. I said, I've been asked to speak at an event. What should I sell? They said, sell an event, sell a workshop, and record it. So I did that. So I subsequently started running workshops. I even actually, I guess a little hat tip to Underground. I called them Underground Profit System. I did 1, 2, 3, and then I did Business Internet Formula, and then I went under Fast Web Formula 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm actually still doing events now. I do one a year now. And this all started from that idea, just that idea in Mexico. And it's another great community thing you can do. So I had these events and I started to really get some great guests to this. One of them who I met through Brad Fallon was John Carlton. And John Carlton became a really close personal friend of mine. And this is how far an idea can spread. He came around to my house and he saw my kid playing Guitar Hero. And he said, get that kid a real guitar. And then he starts sending me sales letters to my inbox on what sort of guitar my kid needs, what amplifier he needs, all the rules, no chicks in the band, no tattoos, etc. He even misspelt my name once on his website, so he sent me a sales letter explaining why that it would be better if I rename myself to Schramko. So he signs off, I sign off Shrek to him. So now my kid is the lead guitarist, writes the songs, has published 3 tunes in iTunes, and they tour gigs. And this was from the time he was about 15 to now he's 18 years old. So this still came from the original underground connections. I finally met Jay Abraham because John Carlton introduced me to Brian Johnson, who worked with Rich Schefren and ran an event, and they found out that that I really held up Jay is a very high model, and he really wrote the chapter that enabled me to quit my job, and I got to meet him and a lot of other people there like Shoe Money, etc. Recognize these boots? Anyone? These are Dory Friend's boots. She kindly let me take a photo, and I consider Dory a friend as well. Dory gave me a Mac Air and a Bose sound system, which sit proudly on my desk at home, because I was able to share some SEO ideas at her event. You see, Dory spoke at the Underground before mine. She spoke at 3, but I managed to get the DVDs for it. And I remember watching the kids at school, after school in the playground, and reading through these things. You link this site to that site, to this site, to that site, and that formed the basis to what I was already doing. I just added that, and over time I built out, actually have around just under 2,000 websites now, and I have a SEO team numbering in the dozens in the Philippines, and we do over 7 figures a year just in sales in that SEO market. And the seed of that idea came from Dory Friend's blueprint, which I got from getting the DVDs by attending Underground 4. So I do have a lot of gratitude there. These are my DVDs from all of my events, which I record, and they reside in my Underground Online Seminar 4 satchel as a little thing. Now, Brad Fallon also introduced me to Ed Dale, who's kind of big in the Australian market, and he attended my events, and he started promoting my products, even not as an affiliate, because it's nice to help each other. And that became a great connection for me. I also went on to the Covert Ops mission and met Timothy Ferris, and I met another character called Ed O'Keefe. Now, Ed O'Keefe is a super connector. This guy is a very, very dynamic and switched-on marketer, and he has been a great contact. He not only became a huge customer of my SEO services for his dental business and then his pharma business, but also he spoke at my event and traveled all the way and shared a very inspirational story. So this all came from that Underground event. So the events just got bigger and bigger, and one of my best connections ever was probably Dean Jackson, and he was a combination of a Brad Fallon, Joe Polish introduction, but what he really taught me at Jeff Johnson's event, actually, who I met at Underground 5, I think. He invited me to speak at his event. Dean was there, and Dean told me, focus on recurring. Just focus on the recurring. Today, my multi-million-dollar per year business, which makes a 7-figure profit, is 90+% recurring. So every single month I walk into a wall of sales that are going to happen. My job is to keep them. So we have this great wine called Grange in Australia. And better than selling a bottle is to sell a case, and then to put that case on a recurring plan. And that's pretty much how I view my business. I want to have good products, but I want them to be auto-delivered. So instead of hunting so much, which everyone seems to focus on, consider being the farmer. Because if you grow your crops and you have continual harvest, that's where the money comes from. Now, Vishen Lakhani, who I can see there in the front row, he actually was a guest in one of the Maverick newsletters, and he was talking about his blog project where he built up this huge subscriber base and was making a lot of money from what we now call content marketing. That was one of the bases for my current marketing system, which actually doesn't need launches, it doesn't need paid traffic, and it doesn't need affiliates. If you can believe this, I'm driving millions of dollars in sales with no affiliates, no paid advertising, no launches. It's just from this system that I've created. The other inspiration was Gary Vaynerchuk. He spoke at one of the Undergrounds, but he was referred to at Underground 4 by the wine expert, and he made me go and look up his videos, and that was really eye-opening. So I came up with my own video system of blogging based on these two inputs, which I call Own the Race Course. And I actually was able to finally find a vehicle for me to bring this automotive experience, this 100-year-old industry experience of owning your own assets and stop putting all your best stuff on someone else's platform. This business is so strong that it enabled me to become the world's #1 affiliate for lead pages. And you'll hear from Clay Collins of that story, but I'm almost certain that I was partially a contributor because of the system that I have. And a lot of it has to do with podcasting. And you'll see that, again, meeting these people has come about from coming to events like this. Also, Noah Kagan, I met at Underground 8. He was a speaker, and I did a little guest spot on SEO. And him and I are speaking most days, and he's about to publish a guest post that I just produced on the podcasting. So he came from an underground contact as well. Now, one of the best ideas I ever got, and you really need to write this down, is from Hubert Centers. At Underground 4, he shared, and I think it wasn't even recorded, it may not be recorded, but he was doing stockbroking, and he let people buy subscriptions where he would let them log on and watch him trade on a webinar. I immediately signed up to GoToWebinar. I still have one of those 1,000-seat for $99 deals. And I run webinars every week, and I now generate around 7 figures alone just from doing paid webinars. Not the big free ones we've seen very popular in 2 years. I've been doing this for 5 years, and that's been one of my most profitable activities. So what's my life now? Basically, I get to travel. I go overseas most months, and I live at the beach. I moved to the beach last year. And my goal, as Yannick said, is just to go surfing every day. I try and keep my working week to around about 30 hours. Sometimes it's 20, 25, sometimes it's 40. And I now, like Jeff was just saying, I run my events at the hotel, like next to my place. I want people to come to me instead of having to travel around. And I'm actually up to my 9th live event, so I'm chasing you down, Yannick. This is the view from my place, and I'll be back there on Monday in the surf. And this is probably a better representation of how life is now. It's a lot freer and easier. But the key points, I hope you pick them up. Incorporate webinars somewhere in your system. Have a look at podcasting. I really think it's big. Recurring revenue is what you should focus on. And farm your existing customers. Spend more effort with your customers than getting new customers. And as Yannick has taught me, the best answers come from the best questions. So my challenge to you, if I could pass the baton on, is how can you leverage Underground? And that's what I got.
Nice job, James. Thanks, man.